I am a female veteran who lost a leg in brutal battles defending my country. But that day, right in the heart of the city, I wasn't fighting an enemy on a distant battlefield. I was brutally attacked simply for asking for a parking spot reserved for people with disabilities. As I approached the lot, my eyes scanned a long line of cars waiting for those special spots meant for people like me, those who have sacrificed. I stepped out of my car and politely asked for an open space. Instead of respect, I was met with contemptuous stares and mocking laughter. A group of strangers suddenly charged at me, shouting insults, calling me a faker and a scammer, as if this prosthetic leg was some kind of joke to get priority parking. I tried to explain, tried to stay calm, recounting the months of fighting and the injury that nearly took my life. But my words were like whispers in the wind to them. Without warning, a thunderous punch slammed into my shoulder, knocking me down onto the cold pavement. The pain wasn't just physical. It was the cruelty of people that cut the deepest. Around me, people just stood and watched, some quietly filming with their phones, no one stepping in to help. In that moment, I realized the fiercest battle isn't on distant war fields. It's right here on these city streets. And the most unexpected thing was yet to come. The military, my old comrades, arriving to surround the parking lot, changing everything in ways no one could have imagined. My name is Sarah Mitchell, a 38-year-old female veteran of the United States Marine Corps who has sacrificed more than most can imagine. After 8 years of service, I witnessed brutal battles in the Middle East, where every day was not only a fight against enemies, but also a struggle to hold on to myself. During one deployment, I lost my left leg, a part of my body, but never my will, pride, or unbreakable spirit. Today, my prosthetic leg is more than just a replacement. It's a symbol of resilience and courage forged through the harshest trials. Returning to civilian life, I faced a world very different from the battlefield, one where fairness, understanding, and respect are not always guaranteed. I learned to be independent, to care for myself, and to support fellow veterans on their recovery journeys. Yet I couldn't escape the suspicious glances, whispered judgments, and subtle discrimination. Still, I never let those things diminish my worth or silence my voice. For me, every parking spot reserved for people with disabilities is not merely a convenience, but a testament to the sacrifices and losses we have endured. When I asked for such a spot, it wasn't just a right. It was a reminder that respect is owed to those who have stood in defense of our country. But instead of respect, I faced cruelty and violence in the heart of the city. My story is not just that of a soldier who lost a part of her body, but a voice for all those who continue to fight tirelessly to be recognized and respected in this society. As I gently stepped into the parking lot, I held on to the hope that a simple request, to use a parking spot reserved for disabled, wouldn't cause trouble. But the moment I spoke up, the atmosphere shifted instantly. A group of people nearby turned to me with eyes full of contempt and mockery. What started as light teasing quickly escalated into crude, disrespectful words. I tried to stay calm, my voice soft as I explained that this was my legal right, a part of the sacrifices I had made for my country. But they refused to listen. One man in the group, his gaze cold and challenging, suddenly grabbed my shoulder roughly. I lost my balance and fell onto the cold, concrete ground. Laughter and shouting erupted around me like a storm, drowning me in shame and isolation. They began tearing at my handbag, cursing and filming with their phones, as if I were some kind of entertainment. I felt humiliation seep into every fiber of my being, not just from the physical pain, but from the hateful stares and vicious insults. The crowd watched silently, eerily indifferent, no one stepping forward to help. Amid the noise and chaos, I fought not only against the pain, but also against a deep ache within my soul, the feeling of being seen as weak, unworthy of respect. Memories of my days on the battlefield flashed before me, where honor and courage were everything. And I realized the greatest battle isn't always fought far away. Sometimes it's right here, in the darkest moments, in the heart of the city. I remember that day vividly. The scorching sun, a packed parking lot, and only one spot left for the disabled. My prosthetic leg felt heavier than usual after a long day, but I kept walking step by step. I had once crossed battlefields with pride, but that day on home soil, I was dragged into something far more humiliating. As I approached the space, a group of loud young people had already parked illegally and were standing around laughing. I calmly reminded them that the spot was reserved for the disabled, people like me, but instead of showing the bare minimum respect, they stared at me, then burst into laughter. One tall guy raised an eyebrow. "You can walk, faker." They all roared, and I just stood there, heart aching like someone had torn open an old wound. Try and stay composed. I pulled out my disabled veteran parking placard. That only fueled them more. A girl in the group sneered. "Oh, so now vets get VIP treatment?" And just like that, they surrounded me. Someone shoved me hard. I fell onto the searing pavement, back slamming into the concrete. My bag flew out of my hand, contents scattered. They laughed louder, like it was some cheap prank show. One of them leaned in, holding his phone to my face, filming as I struggled to get up. This'll go viral. Fallen hero moment. I tried to rise, but the prosthetic slowed me, made every movement feel like defeat. I had crawled through mud and mortar once, but never had I felt such deep shame. Beaten, mocked, recorded like some sideshow act. People nearby just watched through their phones. No one stepped in. I was no longer a person in their eyes, just a broken thing to poke and laugh at. I shouted, "I fought for you," but the words evaporated into the heat, unheard and uncared for. Rage, pain, and helplessness crushed me into silence. Then a sound pierced the chaos, a siren, not just one but many. SUVs, military style, pulled up. Police vehicles followed. Doors flung open. Men in uniform stepped out, eyes sharp and stern. They moved fast toward the crowd, encircling the parking lot like it was a real operation. The group froze. One officer came straight to me, bent down and helped me up, his voice steady. "We're sorry you had to fight alone again." In that moment, I realized the war wasn't over. But this time, I wasn't alone anymore. At first, it was just a faint sound, a distant siren swallowed by the heat and the cruel laughter echoing around me. But within seconds, it became sharp and chilling. The entire parking lot fell into a stunned silence. The group of young men who had been mocking me turned their heads, puzzled. Then the military SUV appeared, deep green, followed by police cruisers, an ambulance, and several pickups bearing military plates. No blaring sirens. No megaphones. Just presence. Heavy, deliberate, commanding. Like a war drum pounding through the air. The doors swung open. Soldiers stepped out with steady, calculated steps. They didn't need to shout or intimidate. Their pressed uniforms, sharp eyes, and unshakable posture said it all. They didn't look at the ones who had hurt me. They looked straight at me. An older officer walked toward me, not rushing, but with an unmistakable purpose. He stopped in front of me, bowed his head slightly, and placed a firm, warm hand on my shoulder. "We're sorry we got here late," he said. His voice was calm, almost too calm. No one gets to hurt one of our own. I bit my lip, holding back the tears. For a moment, I was back in the desert, where your brothers and sisters in arms had your back without question. But this wasn't a battlefield. There were no bullets here, just silence, and the lowered eyes of those who had laughed at me moments ago. A group of soldiers approached the young men. No shouting. One soldier simply held out a hand, pointing to the phone still clutched in the ringleader's hand. "Hand it over," he said. Before the kid could argue, an officer in blue stepped up and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. The clink echoed like a final punctuation mark to their arrogance. The rest of them shrank back, pale as ghosts. Around us, the bystanders had watched but said nothing were now speechless. An elderly woman dabbed tears from her eyes. A young man whispered as if confessing to God, "I saw everything and I did nothing." I didn't blame him. I'd been through enough to know not everyone can be brave. I didn't remember who froze in fear, only who stepped forward when I fell. A military nurse knelt beside me. She gently cleaned the dirt from my knee, checking the straps on my prosthetic leg. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. Her touch said it all. She saw me not as broken, but as one of her own, a sister. I looked around. These soldiers stood not just between me and the world, but between what I had endured and the dignity I still held. They weren't here to protect a victim. They were here to defend a veteran, one of their own. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I nodded once. The old officer met my eyes, steady and sure. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a woman with one leg. I felt like a soldier. And this time, I wasn't fighting alone. I'm not telling this story to gain anyone's pity. I'm telling it because I know there are others like me. People who have fought, who have lost, but who have never surrendered their dignity. I'm telling it as a reminder, even when the world turns its back, kindness and integrity still matter and are worth standing up for. That day when I collapsed in that parking lot, humiliated, hurting, I thought to myself, I've only got one leg left and no one to stand with me. But then I heard footsteps, familiar ones. They weren't carrying flags or weapons. They came with upright backs and steady eyes, as if they were marching into battle again, not with bullets, but with honor. And in that moment, I realized I was never alone. Even after the war ends, even when the uniform is folded away, brotherhood never dies. It lives on in the way we protect each other, not because of rank, but because of what's right. I am not just a woman with a prosthetic leg. I am a veteran. And that day, I was reminded that I am still a soldier. If this story moved you, please share it. Don't let silence shield injustice. And if you want to keep hearing real stories, stories of courage, pain, and the strength to stand tall, click subscribe. Because here, we don't just tell stories for entertainment. We tell them to remember that bravery still walks among us every day.